If my marriage wasn't over before, it definitely is now. Everyone here probably feels this way, but I didn't think my husband would cheat in a million years. I definitely didn't think he was capable of having a full-on affair and hiding it for months. He was the only man I had ever been with in any way, and it broke me so completely. He begged to reconcile and I said yes. I don't know why I agreed, I just don't know what to do with the house, the dog, the in-laws that are like family to me. But if I was going to honestly attempt reconciliation, I did everything wrong. I cheated too, in a very calculated way. I know that was extremely wrong, but I don't feel any remorse if I'm being honest. I'm not capable of feeling anything toward my husband but anger. I continue to act in strange out of character and attention-seeking ways. I feel totally out of control. I have scheduled an appointment with a therapist to try and figure out what's going on with me because I'm really spiraling. I'm not putting any effort into my marriage. I mostly act like he doesn't exist. As long as we're not fighting, he doesn't seem to mind. I know I need to leave and I keep telling myself I will. I'm just lazy maybe? When I think of everything I would need to do to leave and telling people, I just feel so much dread I give up. Story 2. Finally filed, and while it hurts, I'm healing. It has almost been a year since D-Day, and I finally filed. Pre-affair, I would have never considered reconciling, but some of that changed when it happened to me. I loved the hell out of my partner. I mean, I essentially grew up with her. The affair ruined me though. I was such an angry person when I found out, and all I could feel was a cycle of rage, deep sadness, and more. Even had a brief suicidal moment. That first day was the worst day of my life. I blew up at her, pacing the room and yelling at her for the first time ever. I was in disbelief. She seemed so sorry, and the person who I had loved so incredibly deeply for the past 12 years sat there and cried as I broke down. I asked that the affair be stopped. She finally obliged, but fell into it again rather quickly, within a week or two, because she said I wasn't showing her any love or support. We talked about divorce briefly and it was over. But then we lived together, even though we were separated, for the next 6 months or so. I knew he was still around. She still maintains that it wasn't a relationship, yet she was going to move in with him at the end of that 6-month period. Just doesn't make logical sense. She has since went to therapy and they have talked about her self-sabotaging because she made a mistake, so she felt the need to accept that mistake as her new life and that she didn't deserve me. Those 6 months were so incredibly hard for me, so much so that I struggled to do simple things, like file for divorce. I know it's not super complicated, but it was so hard for me because I was more stressed than ever. I just tried to stay afloat. Since she moved out, she broke it off with the guy. Meanwhile, I've taken the year to regain happiness and love for myself. I've been rather successful, and was even set up with a friend of a friend. This girl appreciates and loves me, and I love her. She's terrific. My ex has been trying to get me back for the past month and a half, probably partly due to her seeing me happy with another person and realizing what she lost. I see my ex weekly to trade my dog, and I had been open and transparent that I had dated a little and then found a great girl, also ultra transparent with my new GF. She wanted to see me happy, but she was hurting. I had been talking about divorce for months and slowly worked on getting the papers filled out. I needed to take the final steps of filing and I did it. I don't think my ex ever took me seriously because now she is crying wanting me back. It's been so hard for me because it actually seems remorseful, but it's too little too late. Some may think it's wrong or irrational, but I have held compassion for my ex. I know of her problems and struggles, and I just want to see her happy. I just couldn't get past her affair and how it hurt me so badly. When I look at her, all I see is him lurking around. I'm rather proud of myself for being courageous enough to walk away from a marriage that turned very toxic. I never wanted any of that, but she took me for granted and didn't comply with my boundaries. She had many chances to stop, and she didn't. Now the papers are in and she is practically begging for me to reconsider. It's a tragic situation. There was a lot of pain this weekend, especially after I told my ex that I filed. She cried and cried, but I had to choose me. I am a very empathetic person, and it hurts to watch people in pain, so this really hurt me. Through all of the bad stuff that I had to endure over the past year, I feel blessed to have come across a new person who values and loves me. She has shown so many healthy qualities and leads with respect and compassion. I'm grateful. I deserve happiness, and I may have found it, but I'm taking it slow. Story 3. Dating for 3.5 years, found texts 1 year away from our wedding date. Last week I, M21, found texts on my fiancé's, F22, phone when I got home from my parents. She had been acting suspicious for the past couple days and she was asleep when I got home, so I felt like I just had to look. We've looked through each other's phones before and don't have a problem with it generally. This time, however, when I looked through her messages and went to the recently deleted folder, I found texts with one of her old friends where they were discussing meeting up. For context, I've known about this guy but never met him since basically the start of our relationship. All I ever knew was he was just a friend and that they texted a lot as friends. I was okay with this. Usually they talk on Snapchat, but they ran out of service and started texting. This is because when she was supposedly at another friend's house, she was actually meeting up with him. So the only messages I actually have seen were him and her coordinating right before meeting at his house and right after. All of their conversations that I saw were in regards to having sex, sending nudes, and her telling him how badly she needed that and how good it was. When I confronted her that night, she denied talking to him and denied meeting him. It wasn't until I showed her the texts that she fessed up. Then she defended herself, saying she didn't mean to have sex with him until I told her I knew it was planned. Then she said she doesn't feel like she's been getting any attention. My friends tell me I'm being gaslit. I'm not sure what to think. After all of this, she is now wanting to go to couples therapy. Our first appointment is tomorrow. She is also wildly sexual with me now, even though I don't want anything to do with her or intimacy. This is after 2 years of her claiming a low libido and our frequency declining steadily. I don't know that I can ever forgive her or trust her. She acts like everything is normal despite me trying to have serious conversations about it. I want to look through her phone again tonight because I think she's being untruthful about timelines. Is couples therapy worth it? Am I just dragging out the death of a relationship? I don't know how to rebuild my life without her. It would include moving back to my parents, but I almost feel like that's what I want. Story 4. My F43 husband 42M has a strange relationship with his sister 40F. Is this infidelity? Before we got married, I sensed that something was off between my husband and his sister. He and I dated for 2 months, then were long distance for about a year, and then in person for another year before getting engaged, and she lived with her parents a few hours away, so I only really visited his family a few times prior to getting married. She openly hated me, glared at me across the room, and her jealousy was obvious. If my then boyfriend put his arm around me, she would get up and leave the room in a huff. When we were long distance, he spent Valentine's Day with her and didn't log on to our video chat until very late, later than promised, like almost midnight, and told me it had been special to spend the day with someone who meant something special to him. When we were engaged, he told me he wanted me to plan and celebrate his birthday together with her. She then planned it alone, ignoring my attempts to collaborate, and didn't invite me. He invited me last minute and told me to just ignore what she had done and go easy on her and give her the benefit of the doubt instead of standing up to her and telling her not to treat me that way. He also commented, to me, a lot on her appearance, saying her legs were nice, that she wore just the right amount of makeup, was pretty, etc. He talked about her a lot when we were together. When he was around her, he often linked arms with her when I was there, and kneed her in the bum, which I found odd. These episodes were a small part of our overall relationship, but after a few visits, I decided all of this was too much. I was put off, and told him I thought he had an unhealthy relationship with his sister and that he wasn't emotionally available to form his own family unit. I unofficially ended the relationship and asked for some space. He then talked to his family, pursued me, and insisted things were okay, that they were just close but it was nothing to worry about. That hanging out with her was just like being with a pal. I decided I must be overthinking things. We got engaged. In premarital counseling, I raised all of my concerns about his sister. My husband told me everything I wanted to hear and said when we were married, I would be the person planning his birthday, and that a spouse is the closest and most important relationship, etc. After marriage, there were so many ways he broke those promises. There isn't space to share all of the things, but it felt so ick, like he was having an affair with his sister. He asked me if he could plan a weekend stay in a bed and breakfast with her. I said no. He told me they had done many weekend B&B stays and hikes and mountain biking trips together before he and I were married. He had her with us when he carried me over the threshold into our new home. He still chose her to plan and celebrate his birthday after we were married and told me I could only help her. He gave her one of our cars without asking me. I checked his texts for a while, and he sent her romantic/longing gaze pictures of him on an airplane asking her to pick him up, telling me he didn't need me to pick him up, invited her to the theater after work without telling me, gave her gifts, often in secret and I only found out when I asked. Every time he gave me gifts, for example surprise perfume, she rejected gifts from both of us and asked that they be returned and that he choose something on his own to give to her in private, for example for Christmas. When we visited her parents, she walked around in a t-shirt and panties. She also came into our hotel room once when we were all staying in a hotel wrapped only in a towel and asked in front of me if he could come into the bathroom with her. He said she then removed the towel to show off a new bikini. He came out and asked me to give him a hand job almost immediately after she left. She sometimes sends him Valentines even now, and I know they have regular FaceTimes and meetups when she is in town. I have talked to him so much about this. I don't mind a brother hanging out or catching up with or giving gifts to his sister, but so many times, she has stepped into spouse territory and he has told me blood is thicker than water. There has been so much gaslighting and meeting up behind my back even when I have said I don't mind if you catch up for coffee. There is so much more detail I could share. It just feels like he hides an affair, even if they have never had sex, and feels like another woman is in the marriage. Story 5. Boyfriend cheated 8 years ago and just found out. I've been with my partner 10 years and last week I was tidying up while he was out. He showed me an item sentimental to us both and said he'd store it in his bedside table but had left it out. So I went to put it away and lifted a couple of bits out of the drawer to fit it in. While doing this a few photos fell out. Old family photos but one made by HeartSync. It was a photo booth photo from work Christmas party in 2015. We'd been together 2 years. Of 4 photos, he was clearly flirting with the girl but the last one they were kissing. I put everything back, left the sentimental item where it was and have said nothing yet. My heart is broken. We'd always said cheating is a deal breaker for us both and now it's clear he cheated 2 years into our relationship. I don't know if it was just his kiss or if anything more happened. I don't know if this is a one-off as he's never given me any cause for concern and I trusted him 100%. I can't forget it and need to speak to him as I'm devastated. How on earth do I approach this? I love him but hate him right now and don't know if I can forgive him for this as it feels the last 8 years have been built on a lie and I'm struggling to be near him. We live together. If I'd known at the time I'd have finished things. Now with another 8 years of building a life together I don't know what I want to do. I can't eat or sleep and feel I need to at least have a conversation with him this evening but I don't know where to start.